Hey everybody, Simon here from Blister. And today we're going to be talking about the Pivot Shuttle AM. We're going to go over what exactly it is, who is this bike for, and really what makes it stand out. All right, Dylan, what do you say we dig into the Pivot Shuttle AM?
Let's do it.
What we have here is, well, it's the middle child, I'd say we'd call it, in Pivot's e-MTB lineup. Now, this is a 148 millimeters of rear travel bike coupled with 160 in the front. Pivot does like to use the 157 millimeter rear axle spacing Super Boost.
Yeah, extra wide.
Extra wide. And it's a 29er, or it does have a flip chip for a mixed wheel setup.
So Pivot offers the Shuttle AM in 4 different sizes: small, medium, large, and extra large. As you mentioned before, there's also a flip chip, a low geometry setting and a high geometry setting. In the low setting, it's got a 64.1 degree head tube angle, so pretty slack, paired with a 76.4 degree effective seat tube angle. Bumping it to the high setting changes those to a 64.5 degree head tube angle and a 76.8 degree effective seat tube angle. As far as the reach goes, on our size large that we tested, it's got a 476 millimeter reach in the low setting and a 480 millimeter reach in the high setting.
And we basically rode this bike in the low setting for the majority of its test, which has been almost 600 miles at this point. So we did put a lot of miles on this bike. Both of us got along quite well with it.
Definitely.
I did also try it in the high setting just to see, and you know, the differences were subtle, but ultimately, yes, I preferred it to be a little bit slacker. The reach was, you know, give or take, didn't really make a big difference to me. It was just I wanted to knock that head angle down a little bit. On the spec note, so the rest of the parts on this bike kind of fall in line with what Pivot likes to do. They like Shimano brakes. Most of their bikes will have Shimano brakes. They definitely like Fox suspension, so we're going to see a lot of that out there. We got a factory level suspension on this bike, 36 front, and a Floatex in the rear. It also has a factory transfer post. I do like the Fox suspension. I don't like the Fox seat post. If we're talking spec here, I definitely have had more issues with the transfer. It doesn't matter if it's got Kashima or not. Being sticky and being a little bit fussy in the cold, and I did ride this bike in the cold up high many times, and so here's what it is. Fox, we love what you do in the suspension department. Seat post have been hit or miss for me so far. They decided to partner with Bosch for the drive system on the Shuttle AM. I really like the Bosch drive systems. I'm interested to see how you feel about it when we get into how this bike rides. The transmission does work really well with e-bikes and motors. It shifts well under load. We know that. That's one of the attributes that we've called out before.
Definitely.
When you attach it to a motor, this is very noticeable.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree. Yeah, I found myself downshifting under load quite a bit on this bike, and I think the transmission handles that excellently, and I think it's a really good pairing.
Yeah, this has the 750 watt-hour battery.
Yeah, so pretty big battery.
I find it to be just about right for everything. Did you manage to run it out of power?
Never. I think I got it down to 18% after just
you didn't try hard
hammering
enough.
out on turbo,
Yeah.
but that's as low as I could get it, yeah.
Yeah, so plenty of capacity, but without sort of the weight penalties of some other larger batteries that you'll find out there from other brands, or Shimano specifically that outsources their batteries. You'll find even things as high as 900, for instance, watt hours, but that adds a lot of weight to the bike. The spec below this one has a 625 watt-hour battery.
Yeah, slightly reduced.
I have ridden that Bosch battery, not on the Shuttle AM, but on other bikes, and have found that I get a little bit more battery anxiety. I find myself toggling out of turbo mode more often. So the Pivot Shuttle AM has Bosch's Performance Line CX motor.
Right.
85 newton meters of torque, 340% assist. Yeah, 4 assist levels: Tour Plus, Sport, e-MTB, and Turbo. And I find myself up in Turbo and e-MTB all the time.
Yeah.
What's interesting about these is you can go into statistics and see where you're riding the most.
Yeah, I thought that was nice too, that it has it in the app. For me and my time, it definitely, turbo was most of that chunk for sure. But I do think the other modes are useful as well.
Yeah, and you can turn up some of the parameters in e-MTB. e-MTB is cool because the harder you press the pedals, the more you can feel the motor give.
Yeah.
Versus turbo, when you're just giving the little bit of movement on those pedals, you're feeling like full thrust, full power right away. Okay. Did drop down into Sport and Tour Plus only when the battery, and I was getting a little bit anxious about range.
This bike's coming in at just under 50 pounds. How we weighed it, it doesn't feel that heavy to me out on the trail. First and foremost to me, this is a DW Link bike. And like many of other Pivots bikes, I found that DW Link tends to be a little bit more responsive, sporty, playful. It's a pretty stiff overall suspension design, I'd say, that is easy to push into, you know, pop off of berms. It's pretty efficient in pedaling and whatnot. This thing didn't feel like a big slug to me when out there on the trail that, you know, just only wants to say glued to the ground. You know, I thought it had a pretty dynamic overall feel to it as well, which was pretty surprising given that, yeah, it's almost 50 pounds.
All right, let's just take a second and talk about some of the e-bike controls and displays on this Pivot Shuttle AM. This has the Bosch Smart System, and we've got a Bluetooth remote. We've got the system controllers integrated into the top tube. Now, Bosch uses a very minimalistic approach to the top tube display. Basically just has assist level and battery power. The battery power is in the form of 5 LED bars, which change colors when it goes from 20 to 10%. The system remote is Bluetooth. This is one of the features I really love about this system. There's no wires. It integrates beautifully, especially when you have a SRAM Access wireless pod on this side. There's no cabling underneath the bars whatsoever. The remote then toggles between assist levels. It's got the walk mode, and also can turn your lights on. So super handy and clean, nicely integrated. Let's take a look at the Bosch e-bike Flow app. I find Bosch's e-bike Flow app to be really quite good. It connects quickly via Bluetooth. You can see exactly what you have for battery power left. At the moment it's 92% because I just charged this battery. Gives you a range, and the range is then going to be adjusted for which mode you're in. It also has custom riding modes, so you can go into any of the individual modes and customize them to your preference. Now, this is the cool part. Turn it into the display. Enter ride screen, clock it like this. Now we have a full-featured display with real-time data for mile per hour, battery remaining, miles remaining, time, distance. There's a few more screens in here. We can go back to the map, which is nice. And then also we've got altitude, and this will actually track altitude gained as well, which is one of the functions I really enjoy about it.
This is a bike that's really hard to get feel out of place. It's something that can handle those chunky, rooty, slippery moto trails with, you know, big holes and stuff moving around under you. But when you do just want to, you know, get on mellower trails, go for not as long of a ride, or if you're going on huge rides and you have those long traverses that you have to do, it doesn't feel like a handful in those instances.
Did you ever feel like you got it over its head?
It's hard to say, because when I'm thinking about this bike, I'm thinking about my time on the Pivot Switchblade, which is their non-powered analog bike with 160 fork and 148 in the rear. And to me, I think I had a harder time getting the Shuttle AM to feel like it was out of place than the Switchblade.
I think we're both in agreement here that the Shuttle AM is a good, all-around, versatile, full-powered e-MTB that can appeal to a lot of riders.
Definitely.
It's that really good bike that can sort of be everything, I think, to a lot of people. All right, that wraps up our review of the Pivot Shuttle AM. Dylan and I ended up putting a lot of miles on this bike, and quite frankly, that was easy to do because it's a good bike and really enjoyed riding it. For a more detailed review, please click the link below. And if you have questions or like to post comments, please do so. But more importantly, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.